So really the purpose for this meeting is just to kind of go over like the general concepts of each boss, and then from there like kind of the strats that I've seen people doing for this bot or for each boss, and then if there's, something that we can do or like anything that we want to discuss or change or make it better, anything like that. So, uh, without further ado, I will basically just assume that you guys have not watched any of these videos of these bosses. Or you
I
have,
mean,
but you haven't retained the information because there is so much stuff going on.
to be fair, I asked you if there were any videos out there, and you said that they were just live streams.
I don't remember saying that at all.
We were talking
There's,
about, what was it, Fat Boss not doing videos anymore?
oh yeah, I mean, there's not like videos. Like, there's not comprehensive like guides or anything yet. There's just videos of like, Kevin on the PTR pulling this boss kind of thing. That's it.
Yeah, I hope you weren't joking when you said you'd assume we haven't watched anything, because I, in fact, have not watched anything. But
Oh no, I
I'm ready
wasn't.
to go, Coach.
No, I was not joking. It's uh at the very least pretty much all of the PTR stuff. Um, Everybody's UI is absolute crap, just total hot garbage. So it's really difficult to like watch a lot of these fights and actually see just what the hell is going on and not be distracted by like 40 different things that are going off, like all the Lua errors that they're getting everywhere.
Yeah, the mythic trap thing is super helpful though.
Hmm. Definitely. And we're gonna be, um, I'm gonna be kind of going back and forth between like this spreadsheet, uh, the mythic trap stuff, and then a couple VODs. Um, but yeah. Okay. So, uh, to get started with it though, first boss is Terragru, and there's a couple different things that are going on with the boss. The first thing that he does is around, I believe it's every 30 seconds or so, three people at random are going to get a debuff on them, and if there's anybody within 5 yards of or of those three people, they will immediately get feared for like 8 seconds. So what I'm thinking is we're gonna want to loose spread. Like we're not gonna want to be within 5 yards of each other, just so that way, because you can dispel, uh, you can dispel the debuff that gets put on you, but if you fear six people, we can't dispel all six people. So that's the first thing that happens in the boss fight. The second thing that happens is one person is going to be targeted by like a random mechanic, kind of like the thing from Necrotic Wake, the third boss in there, and you'll have like a big arrow that will be pointing at you. And after I think it's like 7 seconds, um, chains will come out and hit you from the boss. And if it hits you, it does like 20,000 damage, stuns you for I think 10 seconds, and then pulls you in for Annihilation. And Annihilation does 400,000 damage to you and stuns you for 30 seconds. So ideally, what I'm expecting for that is the person who gets the chain, if they have an immunity, they just immune it and then we're good. We don't have to worry about it. Otherwise, what I'm expecting to happen is we kind of set the boss room up like this, where we have like at least 1/4 of the room where just chains will go in that spot, and then there's an anima power that a couple people are going to need to pick up that makes you immune to stuns. And so what their job is going to be is they like it's going to be kind of like the huntsman thing again, where one person stands on X and then the other person like stands, a little bit closer to the boss, right in between them. Gets They get hit with the chain, and then they're not going to get stunned, so then they just get out. Because I believe the Annihilation cast, you're stunned for 10 seconds by the chain. The Annihilation cast, I want to say, is like 4 or 5 seconds long. So you have like 4 to 5 seconds to get out once you get pulled in by the boss. Finally, the third thing that's happening is there's going to be these kind of remnants. Here, I'll actually go through some of this. So this is what the chain looks like. It's just like a thing on you. Um, it's a really bad, like, he put it in a very bad spot because there's like 4 people that are also in line with that. But that's kind of the general idea, is one person is going to either immune it, or if you have the stun, like the anti-stun anima power, then we'll just have one person or like a couple people that are just kind of designated to take this hit to the face. After that, there's Predator's Howl, which is the fear zone thing. And then these are the remnants. Basically, there's like a circle on the ground, and people need to get in the circle. I believe you can get fully, or you can get fully in the circle, and then if you see in here, there's like 5 little orbs around the circle. You have to hit each one of those. So once you've hit each one, the thing goes away. While it's out, the boss is buffed, and it does, I think there's 3 different things that, like 3 different torments that happen. One of them does like AoE damage to the raid the entire time the remnant's out. The other one makes everybody take more damage, and then the other one, I think, makes everybody move like 30% slower. So what I'm expecting from this is, obviously we can't have like Ice Block do this because you need to actually move around. So we're going to need people who have like immunities, who can actually move. So like hunters or paladins or uh, Cloak of Shadows might even work, honestly, because really it doesn't really do much damage to you. What happens is every time you hit one of those orbs, it leaves a stacking debuff on you that does, depending on which remnant it is. Let me see if they actually have it on here. Yeah. So if you take all 5 stacks, you're going to take 50% more magic damage for a minute and a half. And then 50% physical for a minute and a half for the other one. And then you gain a dot. And the dot, I think, does 1500 damage, I want to say, every 2 seconds. So if you have 5 of them, that's going to be a pretty sizable amount of damage that you're going to be taking for the next minute and a half. So
It's applying a debuff when you soak the orb.
yeah, so when you
So I think AMS should work too then, right?
yes, yeah, I think it should. And
Fuck yeah.
I don't think it does any damage to you when you soak it. As far as I could tell, people could literally just walk into it, and the only thing that would happen is you get a debuff.
That's premium AMS, dude.
hmm So yeah, we could definitely just do AMS for that, if depending on how fast they come out. There was one group that I saw that I want to say it happened like every 30 seconds for them, and then there was another group that happened like every 2.5 minutes. So I'm not sure what the timer is looking like for it, or like if it's based on like percent health or something like that. But yeah, so that's phase one. Any questions?
Sounds like my team's meetings whenever people ask for questions.
Yep. All right. On to the next part. So phase two is actually really simple. The only thing that happens is the whole room goes black except for a couple spots, and basically just you do that. You move to whatever spot turns not black. It's kind of hard to see because the whole room is kind of dark to begin with, but looking at it like that, we'll probably have like one person, like maybe one or two people designated to be the person that everyone follows, and then yeah, just go from there. There is an anima power that makes you take 90% reduced AoE damage. If you take that, you can just stand in this the whole time and it does like nothing to you. If not, though, after I think 4 seconds, like I think you have about 4 seconds to get to the next spot. After 4 seconds, it does like 70,000 damage to you. So it will pretty much one-shot you. So yeah, after that, so my plan for this is going to be most likely just Windrush totems for each one. So as soon as this comes out, we do a Windrush totem to get to the first one, and then it should last for, I'm not sure if it'll last the whole time, but I think how long does the buff actually last for Windrush totem?
Isn't it a total of like 15 seconds based off the time it's out and how long the buff lasts afterwards?
I think so, but I didn't know if you had to like reapply it, like you have to stay in the totem.
Yeah, you do have to stay in the totem. I think the actual buff is like 6 seconds.
Okay. So it might be better to actually do like a roar, because I think roar lasts for like 10 or 12.
About 9 to 10 seconds, then you can use a conduit to increase it.
Okay. Yeah, and this whole phase I think is maybe 12 seconds long. So it's really not that bit or that much. After that, after this ends, we just go right back into phase one, do the whole thing again, and this happens every, what is it? Uh, every minute and a half, roughly. Once he gets to 10%, that's pretty much the only thing that really changes in the fight is everybody loses all of their anima powers. The boss gains 500% damage, and he stops doing all of his other spells and he just slowly walks toward the tanks, and if he touches the tank, he one-shots the tank. So basically they just have to kite him. And he also speeds up. So it's kind of it's reminiscent of, what he does now. So from that point we would just hero. Any questions?
So mages can't clear their remnant stacks after they've soaked. Those are on there permanently. With ice block, I mean.
So, I mean, you technically could. Well, I don't know if it'll remove this or the stacks, but basically what I'm thinking is like, because the way that the orbs work is, so you see how they went from 5 to 4, and then all of a sudden they kind of changed where they all stay or where they're all at. So you have to move around in order to get to each one. So like it drops, there's 5, and now it goes to 4.
Yeah, I meant like after the fact.
He's saying suck all 5 of them and then ice block the debuff.
That I'm not sure. I don't know if you're able to remove the debuff that way.
Okay.
It could be definitely could be something we could try.
Yeah.
But yeah, mages, it might be a better option to have them as like the chain person.
Also, I'd like to iterate that during phase 2, there is a specific save spot. Just because it doesn't have black stuff on the ground doesn't mean it's safe.
Right. Yeah, there's like a specifically designated spot, and I think that it's always in corners, as far as I remember, like these 4 corners of the room. So otherwise, this boss is, unless they do a lot of tuning for him and scale him way up, this boss is just entirely like a loot pinata. Like, he's pretty much just gonna fall over. Most people don't even have like healing CDs or anything set up for this boss. I think there was a couple groups who have said that they're planning like Mythic Day to like 3 heal it. But all right. So next is Eye of the Jailer. Phase 1, the tanks get a debuff that every time, or I think it's like every, I want to say like 10 seconds or so, they get a debuff where they take like 30,000 damage, and anybody around them is also going to take 30,000 damage. And it's not a soaked thing. It's just you're also going to take the same amount of damage that they took. So the 2 tanks are probably going to need to spread at least a decent ways away. I think it's like, I want to say either 5 yards or 8 yards, something like that. The major mechanic for phase 1 is there are going to be these, let's see if I can find it. So there's going to be these like abductors that are flying around, and eventually one of them's going to get close, and there's going to be a person who is going to get a big ass circle around them, and it's going to be a chain link, and as many people as we can need to get into that circle. because the more people that get into the circle, the faster the ad gets down to the ground. And if there's less than 5 people, instead the chains will pull all 5 people off and kill them. So it's pretty simple. There's really not like a whole, it's really not like a complicated thing for that. You just get in the circle and then run away from the platform. After that, there is going to be like white fractured soul things that spawn on the ground, like white swirlies that spawn on the ground every so often. It's basically just don't stand in them, is really all it is. There's going to be a really big, important part of the fight, which is annihilating glare, where we are going to have to jump across the platforms. So everybody's going to go over here. There's going to be a chain, like a little chain thing that you can click on. And then you click it. I think it's an extra action button. And then you have to jump across, and then you're good. Beyond that, I believe that's pretty much it for phase 1. Phase 2, the boss goes immune and 2 small ads spawn. It says that you need to keep the 2 ads 30 yards away. However, what I've seen a lot of groups doing is, yeah, like pretty much what they're doing here, where they keep them basically 30 yards away and then just ranged kind of split, like spread cleave those 2 ads. We need to make sure that the 2 ads die at the same time, or at the very least close to the same time, because otherwise I believe they do like I think I think they have like a 10-second cast or something like that, where they'll just one-shot the entire raid if we don't kill them evenly.
So do we need to like split melee up between
Yeah,
I don't know, left one and right one? Hey.
Yeah, definitely. The other part that is going to suck for melee is the ad does this thing called, I don't think it's spreading misery. Yeah, it's spreading misery. Uh, it's going to be a random person is going to get this debuff, and after 5 seconds, it's going to leave a patch of like black shit on the ground, and that thing just continues to grow throughout the entire rest of the fight. So if you mess up like what these people clearly did, that thing is going to completely fuck melee for the entire rest of the fight. So what what I would like to have happen is we have like lock gates set up to kind of do like a Vexiona kind of thing, where just everybody takes, or like as soon as you get the spreading misery debuff, you take the lock gate and you take it all the way to the very back of the room, and you just keep going to the very back of the room and keep you can stack them on top of each other. They really don't do like a, I don't think they do a ton of damage to you. Yeah, I think it does like maybe like 2,000 damage a second, so it's really, really low. So ideally what we want to have done is we just kind of like put a lock gate down, and then everybody just kind of like takes the lock gate and then drops it either on or near the lock gate, and then just gets the hell out of it. Because this this stuff is going to happen 3 times throughout the fight, this phase 2 stuff, and that's where all these happen. There is definitely going to be a lot of shit on the ground. by the time the boss gets to like 25% health, because these things grow forever. Like they slow down once they get to a certain size, but they continue to grow for the entire rest of the fight. All right. Any questions so far?
Can I use AMS on anything?
Probably. You might be able to AMS the dot, although I don't know, because I think it's like 4 people that get the spreading misery dot each time.
Yeah, you probably have to have it up.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what though? Go back though, because it drops the poopy when you dispel it, right? So maybe you can do it like heart rend and heart hemorrhage. You know what I'm saying?
It's when, yeah. So that might happen because it's when it's dispelled or when it expires.
So yeah, if I'm AMS when you dispel it, does it work? We'll find out.
Mm-hmm. I think we actually have a long time to do those as well. I don't think it's 5 seconds. I think it was 21 seconds for this boss. Like, so this debuff lasts for 21 seconds. So you should 100% be able to get out of the room.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
But other than that, in phase 2, there's I believe the boss does a thing called Desolation Beam, which every so often it kind of chain lightnings. So if you're, I think it's within like 5 or 8 yards of people, then the first person gets hit for like 8,000, and the second person gets hit for 16, and then the third person gets hit for 32, and then the fourth person gets hit for 64. And then it can technically just keep stacking infinitely. So we're definitely going to need to spread, and that's going to be another thing that we're going to need to like make sure that the melee are spread out, so that way we're not killing our melee with that. I like it. That's nice. So yeah, that's pretty much that entire fight. Once we get down to 25% health, so the 2 adds happen at 75% health, and then we go into the add phase, kill the 2 adds, get the boss to 50% health. The 2 add phase again happens, get him down, or kill those, get him down to 25% health, and then the 2 adds happen, and then after we kill those 2 adds, he goes into phase 3, where he, instead of he does all of this other shit at the same time, which is just great, but he also does this thing, which is at 25% health, every 5 seconds, he does so much more damage. And he will, I think I want to say like, he just does like a massive like AoE dot, and then everybody takes reduced healing, and I think he takes like 10% more damage or something like that, but it's definitely going to be just a straight up burn phase. So yeah, that's that.
Is this going to be like a have all healer cooldowns available at that point?
I think so, probably. It's so really what's going to be nice, or what's probably going to end up happening is we're going to want to have like Vergoth's Ashen right at the start to just kind of do damage and to uh, help top people off. Eventually, it's not going to be enough, and we're going to want to use like maybe Trank, and then from there, we're either going to need to start like chaining damage reduction cooldowns or like doing damage reduction cooldowns with throughput cooldowns, because like the whole point of this phase is you pretty much have like I th- I would say maybe 40 seconds to kill the boss from the moment that he starts, and that is pushing it with like everything. So you have maybe 40 seconds to do like 25% of his health. So yeah, we'll also definitely be having Hero going during that time as well. So hopefully that should be a little bit easier on the healers, but it is definitely still going to suck. There's another thing that the ads do where we're going to want to have healer cooldowns. So for every, I want to say it's like every 20 or 30 seconds that we're in an ad phase, the boss does this thing called Titanic Gaze, which does about 22,000 damage to all players. And there's also like various other damage going out throughout that point, so usually once this happens, we're going to want to have healer cooldown for that. Which means it's going to be really rough trying to chain healer cooldowns through this 25% phase. So yeah. Any questions on that? On this boss?
Does the chain lightning spell happen throughout the fight?
So it happens during phase 2, and then I believe during phase 3.
Okay, and did you talk about where you have to like use the grappling hooks to get from
Yeah.
cliff to cliff? Okay, good. Just making sure.
So yeah. And then just to reiterate, like the important thing is going to be the dragging chains thing, just because we want to make sure we get as many people in there as possible. Because if we don't, they like if we don't get enough people and we only have like maybe 4 seconds to get enough people in there, then all of those people in there will just straight up get pulled off the edge and die. So on to the next boss, the 9. So this boss has so much shit going on. This it feels like Stone Legion, but it's gonna be like a 5-minute fight, hopefully.
So way better.
Like it's gonna be like Stone Legion, but just faster. So hopefully that's good, but who knows? Um, there's at the start of the fight, there's going to be 2 bosses, Kira and Signy. Kira does a lot of damage to the tank, and She does a spell called Winds of Rage. I'll pull that up. She does a spell called Winds of Rage that's kind of like a weaker version of Annihilate from Zymox, where she just kind of pulls everybody in real slow. And if you get within that circle, she kills you. I believe the pull is stronger, like the closer you are to her as well. So the kind of shitty part with this is Signy has another spell that he does called Reverberating Refrain, which is the opposite. It pushes everybody away, and you have to get in the circle within the 7 seconds, and if you don't, then it kills you. And there were, like, usually they don't line up. There were a couple pulls that I saw people wipe because they straight up like happened at the exact same time. So I'm hoping that that's just like a something that's going to get patched out, but it's Blizzard, so it might not. So those might be just guaranteed wipes if that ends up happening. So yeah, that's the Reverberating Refrain. It looks almost exactly the same, so not great. Aside from that, Signy does a lot of casting spells that do AoE damage to the raid. We just need to interrupt Signy, and that's pretty much all that there is to him. Kira will spawn a blob that I think does like stacking damage to the boss, and it does like a lot of stacking damage to the boss, or not to the boss, to the tank. But it doesn't seem to have a lot of health. Like in a 30-man heroic, it looked like it had about 300,000 health. So hopefully we should be able to kill it within like 40 seconds or so. Aside from that, there's pretty much nothing else that these two bosses do. The important thing is that the third boss, what is her name? Skya. She is flying around, and every so often she will cast Call of the Valkyr, which will do one of 6 completely random things. First one is it will very slowly bring like a giant hammer down on the raid. It's like a 20-yard circle. You just have to get out of it. It's see if I can find it. It is that. So it targets one person. That person needs to get out of the raid, and that's pretty much the gist of the whole thing. If you get in it, it doesn't one-shot you, but it does probably about half your health. So it's just gonna really suck.
Is there any other movement that we need a lock portal, or can we just stick a portal down the middle of the room and have a person eat out?
There's gonna be some other movement that we're gonna need to do. There's going to be a really complex, unnecessarily complicated debuff minigame that the healers are going to have to deal with the entire fight. So you have that to look forward to. We'll get to that in just a moment. So the second of the 6 calls of the Valkyr is Massacre, and that's it. Just dodge Massacre again. The third one is just going to be a tank thing. An ad spawns, can't kill it. Any boss or any any enemy that stands within this giant circle takes 90% less damage. So the tanks are just going to have to move the 2 bosses out. That one's honestly best case scenario. That one's going to be the best one that we get, even though it's going to completely fuck DPS. This one is super easy. It's just there's 4 purple things on the ground, and you just need 4 people to stand in them, and that's it. It really doesn't do hardly any damage to the people who stand in it. Maybe like 1,000 damage a second. If you don't stand in it, then I think they do like, I want to say 20,000 damage every 2 seconds to the entire raid until people stand in them. So those suck. Like if this ends up happening and we have to do other stuff for it, we're probably going to have to end up like having designated people to stand at these spots and just kind of look out for it to make sure that they get in as soon as possible. This one is just a bunch of stuff. You spread, don't get in each other's circles, in each other's bubbles, and that's it. If you do, it does a shit ton of damage to both the people that got hit. And then finally, there is Crystallized V2. So everybody gets into it. It does like 160,000 damage to the entire raid. Or it does 160,000 damage to the person that is targeted, and it is spread out among all of the people that get in the circle. So ideally we have everyone just get in this, but as we will talk about in just a moment, that is not going to be able to happen throughout later points in the fight. So those are the 6 random things the 6 random calls of the Valkyr that she does every so often. Once the 2 ads get to 15% health, as soon as the first one gets to 15% health, the third boss lands, and now you have to fight all 3 until you kill the other 2 bosses. So probably going to want to hero at that point just to get those 2 bosses down as quickly as possible, so you only have to deal with Skaya. Once she lands, there's this cool thing called Fragments of Destiny, where there's going to be 4 people who get targeted by this debuff, and when you dispel one of those 4 people, the dot just jumps to the next person, like the next nearest person to that person. And what you are wanting to do is, with those 4 people, you need to have all 4 of them. Here's kind of my expectation for how it's going to look. So we have one person in the middle, and then you dispel the first person on the outside, they get the hell away from the group. You dispel the second person on the outside, they get the hell away, and then you dispel the last person, and they get the hell away. And once you dispel those three people, the fourth person, their debuff drops off, and it creates a like a puddle of destiny, or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's a giant circle of just slowing and like, yeah, you can see right there how they did it. Basically, it creates these like frost pools on the ground, and they last for the entire rest of the fight. I think they also slowly grow in size, and they do, I want to say, 10,000 damage every second that you're in them, and they slow you by like 60%. So we're definitely going to want to have like a designated spot for these people to stand and just kind of get rid of these. She does a couple other things that are not as important. There's a thing called Link Essence, which basically just is like three people are going to be linked together. If one person takes damage, then the other two people are going to take that same exact damage. So just try not to take unnecessary damage because you might kill someone else. Her biggest thing is going to be Word of Recall, which is she immediately casts three abilities that she cast, Call of the Valkyr, at the exact same time. So you can very well get like the crystallized thing where you have to stack up, this thing where you have to spread out, and then this thing where you have to like everyone get out over here, or massacre or something, and it'll just completely screw you over because the Call of the Valkyr is entirely random. So there's times where she won't even cast, like, she might not even cast like the massacre thing at all for the entire fight, but she might cast it 6 times in a row. So yeah, um, it's a lot to take in, but are there any questions for that?
I just got here. Could you just repeat it real quick?
Uh, Basically the boss is an absolute fuck.
All
That
right,
massacre didn't look nearly as bad as Sire's massacre.
It's not nearly as bad. So on the PTR, it says, like, the tooltip says it does 20,000 damage and knocks people back. So it's not even like half your health, which should be fine. In the logs, though, it was doing like 50 to 60,000 damage and just one-shotting people. So that
Well, I mean more if like it's not spreading throughout the entire room. It doesn't look
yeah,
like.
yeah. It's a lot like smaller, and there's only maybe like five. I think 5 or 6. I think there's 6 that happen because it's the 9, and you're fighting 3 of them. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The only real thing that I'm thinking we're going to need to worry about is for the dispels, we definitely want to have like a specific area for people to just kind of get the hell out of the group and go do whatever thing that they have to do. I did see a couple people try to just like huddle in like a circle and just mass dispel it, and it works like 50% of the time. So worst case, we could always just try that and just kind of keep mass dispelling people over there. Aside from that, the giant like damage reduction thing, I'm kind of just expecting us to kind of like drag the boss clockwise just to make it easier for people. Any questions? All right. So this is the fourth boss in the fight, or in the raid. This boss is actually super simple, so that's nice. It's almost entirely going to revolve around the tanks and like 1 to 2 other people, and then the people who are dispelling. So uh, there's going to be these orbs that spawn. I will bring that up. So these orbs of torment that are kind of like locked behind like a weird little cage thing. They just spawn around the room, and the boss every so often is going to cast Suffering. Uh, it does a ton of damage to that tank, and then they have to immediately tank swap. However, more importantly, it does a ton of damage to everybody in like a cone in front of the boss, so don't stand in front of the boss. And if it hits the Orb of Torment, it breaks the cage around it, and then you just damage the orb. And once the orb is damaged, then uh, someone with high mobility, the tank, or well, probably the tank that's not taking the boss, and maybe 1 or 2 other people are going to need to be designated as the orb people. And pretty much all you do is you pick up the orb once it's dead. You see these people, they have the orb. You pick it up, you get to the edge of the room, and then you'll have an like a action button to just yeet it the fuck off the platform, and that's it. The part that gets complicated with this boss is there is a debuff that the boss will randomly put on people, and you have to dispel that debuff. It leaves a black pool on the ground. I'm actually not sure where it is. Oh yeah, he just does that. Just don't stand in the black shit. But yeah, there will be a like a debuff that happens, gets put on one person, and everybody needs to get to the center of the room, and then the person can get dispelled. The person who has the debuff and gets dispelled does not get knocked back. Every single other person in the entire room gets knocked back away from the center of the room once they get dispelled, and it's like 20 or 30 yards. And that debuff dispel happens a lot, like every 15 seconds or so. You're going to have to basically be like, uh, you're going to dispel someone, the next person is going to get a debuff, everybody runs back to the center of the room, dispel it again, run to the center of the room again, dispel it, and so on and so forth. And you also need to make sure that there are not people, while you're dispelling it, there's not people throwing the orbs off the side of the platform, because if you dispel it while someone is like near the edge of the platform, it will just kill them. So That's it. That's the whole fight. Also, there's Aura of Spite. It's just constant damage that happens to the entire raid. So, any questions with that boss? All right. So now we're on to the fifth boss. Fifth boss. This is Soul Render Dormazane. So this boss is weird and kind of unnecessarily difficult. There's going to be a lot of ads that spawn, which is going to be really fun for some people. A lot of AoE cleave. If you see, so you see these two red circles that these people have. Um, anything that is, or like anything that is in those red circles takes 50% more damage. So if it's a player that's in those red circles, they're going to take 50% more damage. And I think they also, it does like a dot, like every second that you're standing in it. If the boss is in them, or if ads are in them, they also take like 50% more damage. So the goal is the ads spawn and we get this debuff. These guys are going to stand like in the raid or just like kind of on the boss. Everybody else gets away from them. These two people don't move at all, and we just kind of AoE around them. Second thing that he does is he does this thing that's pretty reminiscent of like Hygen the Unclean, where 3/4 of the room is going to fill up and become just like this red shit on the ground. This is, I believe, the only mechanic in this fight that if you stand on this or like on this red stuff as it blows up, this will 100% one-shot you. Everything else does a ton of damage to you, but that will just kill you. So just make sure that we're always in like the safe quadrant. It's not important yet. So these rendered souls, these like white little circles that spawn on the ground, they always spawn on someone. So if we spread out a little bit, then ideally not as many people need to move, which would be better for DPS. So if we can kind of spread out a bit, then that would be ideal. Finally, there's going to be these shackles that are going to spawn at like the front of the room. It's basically the chains thing again. You need to run 40 yards away, and once you run 40 yards away, it breaks the chain and does like everybody takes about 50% of their health and damage. So what I'm thinking is for this part, during the Warmonger Shackle, we have everybody stand kind of like here around like a lock gate. Um, we set up like an SLT or something like that. One person takes the lock gate, and as soon as they land, it breaks, everybody takes a ton of damage, then we heal it back up. Next person goes, take a ton of damage, heal it back up. Third person goes, take a ton of damage, heal it back up, and then we're good. So kind of like the whole like jump thing from Council, except take the lock gate instead of the jump. Let's see. Beyond that, I believe every yeah, once he hits 60% and then 25%, so about 2 times throughout the fight, he's going to do Tormented Eruptions, which is basically the safety dance, where he runs to the front of the room. He's going to stand on that little like platform and like that, and people just need to run around and get to the quadrant, get to the next quadrant, get to the next quadrant. He does not take any reduced damage during this fight or during that phase, so you can hit him the entire time that this is happening. Depending on if this goes live or not. So if you see in the bottom, in like the lower right here, this like spike kind of jutting out, people were able to stand in that or on that spike during this phase, and not only can they hit the boss the entire time, but they don't have to do the safety dance at all. There's a good chance that that's going to get patched out, but if not, we're going to do that, because fuck yeah. Except Melee. Melee probably wants to do the safety dance, so they can actually hit the boss. Yeah, that's pretty much the entire fight, though. Any questions on this one? No questions. All right. Am I going too fast? Do I need to slow down for anybody? This is a ton to take in, so totally understandable. We are recording this, so we can have people like look back through it later if they want to look through it.
Is this document available already?
What? This?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, this is the spreadsheet that's in the Raid Stratton chat.
Okay.
Yep. So next is going to be Painsmith Rasnal, and this, depending on scaling, I'm going to assume this is going to be like the first serious wall for most groups, because this fight has so much shit going on. I don't think almost anybody killed this boss on Heroic. Like, I couldn't find any logs of people killing this boss on Heroic, and from everybody that I could see, most people didn't even get into, like, all the way through Phase 2. This boss does have a lot of shit that you can cheese, though, which will be nice, because this boss has a lot of shit. So, the first thing that the boss does is he has 3 different weapons. Once he hits 70%, he goes to phase 2, does a little intermission thing, changes his weapon. As far as I could understand it, all the 3 weapons really just do the same thing. It's just they do more damage. So it just sucks even more every single time that it happens. There are going to be these rolling balls, these spiked balls that will happen. It happens randomly on one of the 4 sides of the room. I'm actually going to show you this guy. So this is a totally different cheese thing that if it goes live, we're definitely going to do that. But for the orb, or for the balls, so this guy actually went through and tested, I think he said they tested almost every class, and mages cannot blink through them. It will one-shot them instantly if they try to do it. Rogues can't shadow step through them. I don't think you can lock gate teleport through them. I know you can't do the monk thing, like the transcendence thing, to go around them. However, the only one that you can do is you can just be a demon hunter and you can just jump around it.
Did they test warrior jump? Since that's basically the same thing.
Yes, no. Well, no, I mean, you can do it. It's just you need to have like really high accuracy when you do it. Because if you hit that ball to the or like to the side of you at all, if you hit any one of these balls, if anybody hits this ball, um, as far as I can tell, it just one-shots you outright. Like it just kind of rolls you down. But yeah, um, it seems like the balls themselves, they were really buggy on the PTR. Sometimes there would be an opening, and other times it would just be a full line. So we're not really sure if there's supposed to be an opening there or not. And there were times when like some of them would move really slow and some of them would move really fast. So once they got like halfway through the room, there was just an opening that you could just walk through. But if not, I don't think the balls themselves have that much health. I think it was like 300,000 health for one of them for like a 30-man group. So we just need to destroy one and then just kind of walk through the middle. With that being said, there are going to be a couple people who are going to get this super fun thing where they have these chains on them, around them. It doesn't do any damage to them as far as I can tell, but if anybody is standing within 4 yards of them or touches them while they have these chains around them, it knocks them completely off the side of the platform and kills them. And if they somehow make it back and don't die, then it does so much damage that it almost one-shots them anyway. So these 3 to 4 people that are going to get this are going to have to get the absolute hell out of the raid and just stay the hell out of the raid. And they're going to be the last people to go through like the ball thing. If you're melee, that sucks. It's kind of over for you at that point because if someone touches you, you kill them.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, it's just shitty. It's yeah. Like there's a chance maybe AMZ blocks blocks it from happening or something like that, because there is like a little countdown thing that happens, right?
Yeah, if it works like the ads on a Nerva, right? Maybe.
Yeah. So hopefully that is how it works, and you guys can just get away from doing or having to do those. But yeah, that part just sucks. Um, there are going to be flame traps that are going to land on the raid on, I believe, random people that get targeted by them. So these we are going to need to specifically pop these, and we can't pop them super quick. There's like a 1.5 second delay between it, because if you get hit with 2 of them at the same time, the entire raid takes 200% damage from them. One trap does about 20,000 damage to the raid. Uh, so what we're gonna need to do is the traps go down. Um, we have somebody pop one of the traps, everybody heal back up, pop one of the traps again, heal back up, and just keep doing that, rinse and repeat. Because if, or rather when, a spike ball rolls over one of them, it'll just blow it up anyway. So there's a chance that what we could do is while this is happening, we can just kind of, like, you see how they have their spike balls set up and their traps set up? We could make it so that the spike balls just blow them up on their own, and we just heal through that during the spike ball phase as we go, rather than having to pop them ourselves. But that's probably something we'll want to play around with. Let's see. The next thing is going to be, so with the 3 different weapons, there's a reason why the room is set up like a grid. The first weapon, when it hits the tank, um, the the line or the row and column that they were standing on, and then the 2 next to him that he was standing by, they are all going to become spikes for like a couple seconds, and those will one-shot you if you touch them. So as soon as the tank gets the Cruciform Axe debuff, he needs to get the hell away from the entire raid, and everybody just needs to not stand in that spot. Once we get to 70%, there's this one called Reverberating Hammer, which, depending on which tank gets it, well, I mean, technically both tanks could get it. There is a super cheeky thing that you can do that this guy learned, which is, so it lands, or it goes out based on where you are on the grid. So if you're just not on the grid, then it just doesn't happen. And so they tested it with Demon Hunter tanks, and obviously that works. Warrior tanks work. Monk tanks, it works, and then you just Transcendence back. And I think the only one that it doesn't really work with would be, I think they even said you can do it with Guardian Druid, and they would just like flap back onto the platform. The only one that it doesn't really work with would be like Blood Tank, Blood Death Knight. But yeah, if that goes live, that would completely negate that entire mechanic for us, which would be huge because the way this works is it goes about that fast, and you have to like the tank gets out, and then all the people, like if someone gets hit with that line as it's coming, they die. So you either need to like just dodge over it somehow through like Night Fae or something like that, or like you can't even take a lock gate. It's that fast. So it just yeah. So that part just sucks. And then the final one is he just does both.
And the people that aren't Night Fae or have something, how are they supposed to dodge it?
You have to move super fast in between that line when it's like uh on the or like it'll be on the ground. It won't be spikes yet, and you just have to run as fast as you possibly can.
Is there a video of that other than that little animation?
As long as you're pre-positioned for it, it's not going to be a big deal. You're just going to have to do what you did in phase 2.
Yeah.
Because the first cross, I mean, that's going to get you or it's not. As long as you're on the opposite corner of the tank, you'll be good. All you're
God,
going to
that's
have to
so
think about
fast.
is the other one.
Yeah. Oh, and I believe the spikes are physical damage as well, just to add insult to injury to all the Death Knights.
Like, if you guys see the animation right there, the first part right now, that T right there, we're not even going to have to think about it. We're just going to have to think about that.
Right. Yeah, like we just have to dodge past this part. And you have it's going to take a lot of attempts to get through it, and I would really expect them to slow it down because that is way too fast. And if it hits you, I think it does about 160,000 damage to you, physical damage, and stuns you just because why not? But yeah, beyond that, that is the entire fight. Just um, really all it is hit the boss, spike balls, and then uh, hit the flame traps. The healers can probably deal with the flame trap stuff, so they'll just or like we'll just have someone activate those. And then if you have the chains, get the hell out of the group. And that's it. Any questions for this boss?
Did you go over the intermission as well, or no?
I did not actually. So the intermission is basically just what's going to end up happening is the boss runs away, and then we just get spike balls that come through. I believe we still get the flame clasp traps as well, and then so yeah, the spikes happen. However, one thing that's totally different is one of the squares in the line of spike traps will be open. So you just run to that open square. And they do still go crazy fast, so that part sucks. But there's also ads that spawn. The ads, as far as I could tell, don't do pretty much anything. They don't really do any damage either. It's literally just there to kind of like do something while you're doing this like spike thing.
I think the ads are only in Mythic though.
Oh, okay. Then yeah. Oh yeah, it says it right there.
Looks like they're always coming across from the same side.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the intermission, after a minute of just dodging all these, we just go back to phase 1 again, and we just keep doing it. We're repeating that over and over again. Any other questions? All right.
Oh, for shadow, flame clasp traps.
Yes.
Could one person, in theory, detonate all 4 of them by running? Okay.
I mean, they could. So yeah, they kind of can. Basically, they have to give the entire raid 1.5 seconds between detonating each trap.
I meant like if we have a healer assigned to the traps, just like run over the trap as a healer, get everyone topped off, and as a healer, you have the best judgment out of anyone in the raid when you can run over another one.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's probably something that we're gonna wanna do is have like one of the healers just kind of pop the traps as we go.
Yeah, they don't really do that much damage anyways.
Yeah.
And there's really no other damage going on at that time, what it looks like. Avoidable damage.
Yeah, we'll find damage to take. Don't worry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like this boss on PTR was definitely overtuned. Like the damage that all of this stuff did was just crazy high. Like I don't think any of the I don't think they're going to keep this stuff going live because that would just be way too much. But I think live we could just pop a trap, um, and then after like maybe 2 seconds or so, pop another trap, then pop another one and just keep going. So yeah. Anything else? All right. On to Guardian of the First Ones. So the general concept of this boss is pretty simple. Stay away from the tanks because the tanks take another one of those like AoE damage things. There's going to be, oh yeah, the 2 tanks need to take Obliterate together. There's going to be a sentry that floats around the room and just kind of does like random damage to people the entire fight. You can't attack the sentry in any way. So, see if I can try and find it. It's this thing that's like floating around. If you get caught inside of the circle, then it silences you the entire time that you're inside the circle. And that's it. It just does random damage, and that's pretty much the whole thing. There are a couple mechanics that the boss does. First one is threat neutralization, where you need to get out of the group. There'll be 3 of them usually. So just get out, and that's pretty much it. It's going to get more complicated when we get to the other parts of it, the other parts of this fight. There is a disintegration ray. Get out of the ray, and that's that whole thing. It does a really, really high amount of damage, and then leaves a dot on you that will almost 100% kill you and stuns you. So the overall premise of the boss fight is that he does obliterate on the tanks, form sentry, threat neutralization, and disintegration. And that will cause him to lose energy. Once he hits 0 energy, he starts to cast this thing called, I believe, Purging Protocol. And when he does that, it just does like a shit ton of damage to everybody in the raid. It's like, I think like 10,000 damage a second to the entire group until you get him into a core. And once he's at an energy core, it interrupts the cast, and then he starts getting energy from the core. While he's getting energy from the core, everybody needs to stand in the core. When you stand in the core, see if I can find it. Yeah, it's like this big circle. You take 90% less damage from all of the other raid-wide AoE damage that's just ticking on you throughout the entire fight. But while he's getting energy, he's constantly doing ticking damage to you the entire time. And it's like 20,000 damage every half second. So the second that you stand or that you get out of this circle, you die. So that, like, this is the part that gets really shitty because you can have that threat neutralization and you pretty much take up, like with threat neutralization, you take up pretty much the entire room or the entire like area for people. After he gets up to, I think usually he gets up to full health or full energy, the core will begin casting Meltdown, and that's what it looks like. It's like a yellow swirly on the ground. Get out of that immediately because it one-shots you if you don't get out of it. And then the fight just continues as normal. Get out of or move the threat neutralizations out, get out of the beam, dodge the sentries. There are 3 of these pillars in the room, so basically it's a DPS race. Because once you get through all of these 3, and he gets down to 0 energy, he starts casting Purging Protocol, and from that point, you have maybe at the most like 10 seconds to kill the boss, because we're just going to have to kind of like chain healer cooldowns throughout that entire phase. But that's pretty much it. He's just kind of like the standard like Sludge Fist boss of this tier. Any questions on that?
this a hero and pulled fight?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, I figured.
There's really no like burn phase for him, so all right. On to Fate Scribe Ro Kalo. This boss, there's gonna be a weak aura made for this boss. There's no way that people are actually gonna be able to do this boss without something to like explain how the hell to do this boss. Because this is so ridiculously complex. So, step one, there's a tank thing. Tank gets this thing called Invoke Destiny. He needs to get the hell out of the raid, and a shade will spawn out of him. It's that. He needs to get the hell out of the raid. Way further than what that guy did. It'll spawn a shade that will just continue to move towards whoever it spawned on, and if it touches that person, it will kill them. If we can also CC it, but if we don't kill it within a minute, then it kills that person anyway. So we have to kill it, and then after that, it spawns smaller minions. They have like a cast timer. They can also be hard CC'd, so you can just AoE stun them, and we just kill them. Don't pull them in like this guy did, because holy fuck, why would you do that? Like, you just pull it onto your tank and it just killed your tank immediately. Um,
Is there a video anywhere of the little ads, the 5 that are supposed to spawn?
yeah. Okay, so these people get it. It can also, there's another one for DPS and healers. They can also, or they can get that. It's almost the same, but not quite the same. These things will just continue to spawn ads throughout the entire rest of the fight. So we'll go over that in a minute. But here's the tank one. The tank goes way the hell over there. Drops the ad, and then the ad quickly moves toward the tank. It died, and it looks like it did not spawn ads that time, which is weird. But it's going to spawn these like little black anomalies, these 3 black anomalies.
Okay.
So these orbs that the DPS dropped during the intermission phase, they're going to spawn these anomaly things as well throughout the entire time. And they can be hard CC'd. It's pretty much just going to be during the intermission phase, everybody just kind of groups up and just murders these ads while 5 people get randomly voluntold that they are going to be part of this rune bullshit in the middle of the room. So just to reiterate, phase 1, there's going to be this stuff for DPS and healers. You drop the bombs on the ground. Try to drop them close to each other because they're going to spawn adds the entire time that we're in the intermission phases. So we want them close enough to be able to like group up all the adds each time that we get them. He does this thing. It's super telegraphed and it's like a 12 to 15 second cast. Like just don't stand in it. That's it. Don't do what that guy did. Just stand to like the side of it is really all you need to do. Once we get into phase 2, 5 people will be randomly assigned to be part of the rune thing. So that one worked. So in order to explain this a little bit better, there are these 5 circles on the ground, and there's going to be a lit up, like one lit up rune, and then an actual circle just on one of these, and one person that's part of this group stands on this rune, and while they're standing while they're standing around the circle constantly moves clockwise. And it will eventually move to that circle, and then you get off.
Do you have to get off, or it looked like he actually stopped? Like the thing stopped on its own.
It is like there's a 50-50 chance that it stops on its own, or it just keeps going, and then you'll have to go around the entire thing all over again.
Like, are you saying you don't know if it does, or it actually has a 50% chance of doing that?
Well, like, we don't know if it does. There was on the PTR, it was really buggy. So there was times where it would lock in and you could stand on it and everything's fine. And then there was other times where it would lock in and then you would stand on it. And then after like half a second of you standing on that rune, it would be like, all right, time to keep going. And then it would unlock itself and start going around all the way again. So then you'd have to stand on the whole thing all the way.
I mean, it looks like it's just designed to where you just run the rune to the circle and it'll lock in just from this. But you have to also have a partner with it if you need to go in the other direction.
Yeah. So
which just seems ridiculous.
yeah. So if you're even, or if you have an even number of people, it goes counterclockwise. Odd goes clockwise, and the more people that you have on the circle, the faster it moves. There's also these little black orbs that, like black and white orb things that spawn. They do like maybe like 10,000 damage to you, but they slow you by 33% for 7 seconds, and that stacks up to 3 times, which the problem is that like these circles, the things that the DPS create and spawn the adds, those continue to stay there for the rest of the fight. So as the fight goes on, we're going to have more and more of these like little black and white orbs running around. So there will get to be a point where if you get hit by one and it slows you down by 33%, you're going to get hit by like 5 more and you're just going to die. because you just can't dodge away from them fast enough anymore. So, aside from that, this realign happens at 70% and 40%. It's 30 seconds, not 40 seconds. So you have 30 seconds to do this whole thing. And then after that, yeah, those are just the projectiles. That one stunned that person for some reason. It's not, I don't think it's supposed to stun, it just slows. I believe that is pretty much it. Once he gets to phase 3, which is, so he goes into phase, or he's in phase 1, goes into phase 2 at 70%, and then after 70%, he's in phase 3. All of the mechanics happen from phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time for the rest of the fight, from like 70% down. So eventually, we're going to have people who are going to get like the ring thing, and then they also get the thing where they have to like dodge and take the ad shit out, and it gets crazy. Any questions on this boss? All right. On to the last one, technically. Well, not technically. Kel'Thuzad. So this boss has way more stuff going on than all the other ones. And a lot of people uh, have been considering this boss to be almost 2 times worse than Stone Legion, just because there's so much stuff that's happening that it almost feels like there's not enough time to even do like any one thing at any time. So the first thing that happens is we'll talk about the tank mechanic, Soul Fracture. The tank will get hit with Soul Fracture. We have to immediately taunt swap because they take 500% physical damage until the 3 Soul Fractures are killed. When he gets Soul Fracture, there will be 3 ads that randomly spawn in the room. They need to be interrupted, otherwise they cast Piercing Wail, which does 16,000 damage to everyone. And when he picks up the, like, once the ad is dead, he then needs to run over to that shard that's on the ground and pick it up as well. And that also does Piercing Wail to the entire raid. So regardless of how we do it, we're going to have to get hit with this 3 times. We also have to kill all 3, and he has to pick up all 3 soul shards within a minute, otherwise it just kills him outright. So from there, let's see. There's this thing called Oblivion's Echo, that spawns on people that is pretty much entirely meant to be for these ads. I believe 2 people at the start get these, and what they are is like it's a 10-yard zone of silence that just stays on the ground forever. Well, no, I think it's for a minute. And you can actually put these on the ad, like the Soul Shard ad, and they just won't cast at all the entire time that they're in it. Which is really helpful because there's been quite a few times where they will just, like, the ad will spawn. Here, I'll see if I can try and show you. So that's the first one that spawns. The Oblivion Echoes come out right after. And then the other 2 spawn on the complete other side of the room. And it's entirely random where they spawn, but it seems like it's always 2 on one side and 1 on the other side. So, yeah. Aside from that, there is Howling Blizzard, which there's going to be like slowly forming AoE circles on the ground that are just going to keep getting bigger. And then after 20 seconds, they stop getting bigger and they explode. It does 10,000 damage a second to you if you stand in them, and it slows you by 30% while you're standing in it. When they explode, it does like 60,000 damage to you. So you definitely just cannot get in those, and we need to find like a safe spot immediately. Luckily, it seems like there's a standard like pattern for all of these, so we can just put down like a lock gate, or for them they even just have like a square where you can just stand. Let's see. There is Corpse Detonation. There's going to be random ads that will spawn and latch on to a specific person. That person needs to run away from the group, and we need to kill the ads before they get to the person. They can be hard CC'd, so it's not that big of a deal, but we do want to kill them. When they die, they also do like 30,000 damage to everything around them within 5 yards. So melee probably can't fight them, or if they can, they want to get the hell away before they die. Last thing for phase 1, I believe, maybe second to last thing for phase 1, is people will randomly get targeted by this thing called Glacial Wrath. It will put a circle on the ground, like a little swirly on the ground, like that. And then after a couple seconds, it will spawn a glacial spike. That spike takes 5% of their health every 10 seconds. Once they reach 0 health, they do a shit ton of damage, like 30,000 damage to the entire raid. So what you need to do is you need to destroy one quicker in order to offset the damage, so that way you're not taking 60,000 damage to the entire raid at the same time. But raid cooldowns are definitely going to be needed for that, because a lot of shit overlaps right there. Last thing is Frost Blast. It's Crystallize, just same thing. Also, the people who soak it all get snared as soon or once they soak it, which really fucking sucks. I think we're probably only going to want to have like maybe 6 or 7 people at the most soak it, because if we have too many people soak it, then everybody's going to get snared and we just can't dispel all of them in time, because all of that, like the Frost Blast happens and it seems like it almost always ends up overlapping with the Howling Blizzard right after. Yeah. Any questions for phase 1? All right. So on to phase 2. Once you get Kel'Thuzad to 0% health the first time, phase 2 starts, and a little phylactery thing will spawn, and like that spawns in the middle of the room, and about half the raid is going to need to get into that. While inside, I'll show you everything that goes on inside of it. So there's going to be random green swirlies that spawn on the ground, always. It's way slower than this. I don't know why they have it sped up so fast, but it's not nearly as fast as that. There's going to be freezing blast, which is just like a conal effect that targets, I want to say it targets the like the tank, the direction that the tank is facing. And then that part we don't need to worry about. So for the remnants, or for the remnant, we go in there the first time, and the goal is go in there, get the remnant to 66% health. Once it gets to 66% health, it starts casting this like 10-second long cast that once it finishes the cast, if anybody is still in that room, it kills the people that are in the room still. It still can take full damage the entire time that it's doing that 10-second cast. So once you get to 66% and the cast starts, I'm expecting to continue to DPS him, because all of this stuff stops happening for 10 seconds, and you can usually, most groups were getting it, he was starting the cast at 66%, he was ending the cast at like 55%. So once that happens, then everybody goes into a little portal, gets out, and they go back to the main room. While all that's happening in the main room, there are a couple of ads that are spawning. First one is a demolisher. They're or A-bombs. They do this thing called demolish, and I believe it's just like a frontal ability. So just don't stand in front of it. It's like that green line that spawns out right there. Second one is Banshees, and they have a cry that you have to interrupt. Otherwise, it does 8,000 damage, and the next one does 25% more. And from what people were seeing, it's any of them. So if, like, let's say 5 spawn and one of them cast or gets a Banshee's Cry cast off, any of the 5 that gets the next one off is going to do 25% more. So we just really need to make sure that we interrupt those the entire time, and we just continue to cleave all these down. He's also going to continue to spawn the frostbound devoted things, the guys who just explode at people. So we just need to make sure we're killing those. The people inside of the room, or inside of the remnant room, have 45 seconds to get the remnant to 66% health. Otherwise, once 45 seconds hits, everybody dies. So yeah. The third phase, or third phase 2, yeah, third phase 2, the remnant will start to do another thing, and I'm expecting this is probably where we're going to want a hero, because he starts casting these glacial winds that do a ton of damage to people, and they root people, which, for all of the stuff that's happening in this fight, rooting is really bad for this phase. We can also, ideally, we're going to get him down to like way below 33% health by the time that we're actually going back into this phase. I would hope like maybe 25% if possible, but that all just depends. So once we kill the phylactery entirely, phase 3 happens, and it's literally just, I believe the ads continue to spawn throughout that entire phase, but he does deep freeze, which is just this thing where it's basically the blizzard, but it's just slower, and it just continues to slowly fill up the entire room with blizzard until either you die or you kill the boss. And at that point, the only thing that you really have to worry about is ads and that. So there's like 2 phases. I feel like what's going to happen is we're going to have like the people inside are going to get heroism and kill the phylactery, and then the people outside are going to get heroism for this phase. So any questions on that?
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah. Yes, it sucks. Oh, also, just you know, just as like an extra thing, everybody that's inside the phylactery, I think it's like, yeah, every 2 seconds that you're in the phylactery, you get a stacking dot on you while you're inside the phylactery. So the longer that you stay in there, the more damage that you're going to end up taking, and it ramps up fast and it will pretty much kill you. Like most groups I was seeing, if they were lasting longer than like 30 seconds in the phylactery, it just wasn't healable. Anything else? Well, all right. Unfortunately, there is no final boss at this point. Phase 3, or Sylvanas on PTR, was so buggy that people literally could not do the fight. So I don't know how they fixed it, or if they fixed it, or how it's going to look, but it'll be interesting. And hopefully, like, this stuff is hopefully going to get more filled out once we actually get people in the fight. But yeah, that's pretty much all of it. That's the whole raid.
That's a lot.
Yep. Side note, also made a healing spreadsheet for this tier, so that's cool.
Well, thanks for all this, on.
Yeah, no problem. As we keep progressing through the raid, I'm expecting to keep doing these, and more than likely, we'll probably get more in depth with like a specific boss. Like, say we're stuck on um, like Painsmith or Remnant or the 9 or something like that. We'll just like, have like an off night meeting where people can just like drop in, drop out, and just kind of like throw ideas out there and try to figure out, like, for this week, like, what did we try, what went wrong, what do we want to try next week, that kind of stuff, and just kind of like talk through it as a group.
Yeah, I think seeing stuff, it's going to be a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. Like, a lot of this is just, there's so much new stuff being thrown at you that it's definitely gonna, I feel like a lot of it's not really gonna sink in until we actually get into the fights. But yeah.
Excellent, Hun. Thank you so much. We'll start the raid in a week and a half. July 6th, Tuesday. Plus, we'll have the benefit of seeing all the top guilds do it Tuesday morning and see what is and what is not, in fact, part of the PTR testing. Most of the fights, honestly, are, especially the first like 5, are pretty simple. The 9 might be a little complicated, but honestly, it's just tank and spank avoid AoE with a dispel mechanic. I don't know, it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels simple enough, at least.